Hello and welcome to the Home Yogi Source. I'm here with the inimitable Gina, yoga guide today. How are you today, Gina?
I'm doing fabulous. Thank you for allowing me to be here with you today.
Oh, I'm excited to have this conversation with you. Today, we are going to be talking about home yoga practice, ways to increase self-compassion. So I would like to invite you, Jeana, to start us off with a short breath awareness, like 1 minute of breath awareness to sort of bring us all into the same time and space, no matter when we're watching this.
Yeah, perfect. We can first just come in and settle into where you are. So if you're seated on the floor or seated in a chair, even laying down, you can soften your eyes or on a point in front of you, or close your eyes completely and allow my voice to guide you. Creating a nice long line from your tail all the way from your spine. So checking in with your pelvis and your head and heart, that they're in alignment. You can bring your shoulders up by your ears and then allow them to relax and roll down your spine as you exhale. And just allow your natural breath just to take over here. So no shifting your breath, just aware of your breath. Feeling the quality of your breath, whether it's smooth and shallow, or maybe it's choppy. No changing, just aware. And then just check in with your mind space here. We're here for a moment together, so anything that is on your list of things to do, you can set aside. And we can just set this intention to be present, to have compassion with ourselves, and to find joy in the moment. And allow your breath in to cleanse you, and your breath out to bring peace. Breath in to cleanse, and breath out to bring peace. And this is something you can use at any time. When you're feeling stressed, you can bring in just that simple breath practice. Or you can use it anytime to start your meditation. Short, simple, sweet. You can ride your breath for as long as you'd like.
Beautiful. Thank you. That was quite a treat and much needed in the middle of the day.
Yes.
So our topic in the home yoga practice front was selected by you for today, and I love it. I'm wondering if you have why was this on your mind for our talk today?
Just compassion in general for ourselves and others. I feel like is something so needed now and always. And it's really easy to give ourselves to other people and to have compassion for others, but to not give it back to ourselves. So sometimes it's easy to have that reminder of compassion for others so you can give it back to yourselves. And I think it's something we all deserve in our life, is to receive a little bit love, because it can be harsh out there sometimes.
Yes, they're real for home yoga practice. And even when it's not harsh, giving to others is a practice of giving back to ourselves when it's coming from a place of enough. And sometimes all it takes is that minute that you gave us at the beginning here. It just takes that minute to remember, okay, I am enough. This is enough. I have enough. There is enough. All of the enough. and then we can be of service again. And sometimes it takes a lot longer, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So breath awareness is sort of the number one place to start for self-compassion. when someone wants a longer practice that's self-led, what are the sorts of things that you tune into that you could suggest?
Yeah, many things. So things that I tune into to give myself more compassion is really just every day. It's a new day for compassion. Every day is a new day. So starting yourself new, cleaning the slate. So whatever happened yesterday, that was yesterday. And to just kind of have compassion for yourself there too. If I was a wreck yesterday, that's okay. But today's a new day and I have compassion here and I can start anew. So I really kind of self-analyze, maybe because I'm a Virgo and I like to self-analyze, but I'm kind of always going through my checks and balances as, where is my balance here? Am I being hard on myself, or am I giving myself good motivation here? Or am I giving myself inspiration? So being mindful of just what's going on in your brain space with your compassion. How are you treating yourself? And if you're not treating yourself well, meaning with the foods that you're eating and how you're moving your body and the things that you're thinking, that's going to come off and go out towards others as well.
Mm. And it also, it makes it so much harder to be in the space that we want to be in when we're giving to one another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's so wise of you to highlight the complementary nature of how I'm feeling myself and how I'm moving myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say we have to be perfect with like some sort of, oh, I'm eating only vegetables, fruits, healthy fats, right? Like sometimes compassion can be, have you given yourself a treat today?
Right? Yeah. How have you rewarded yourself?
and then have you really enjoyed it? Right? Another way to work into a busy day, if you haven't had a chance for a little bit of space to tune into your own breath, your own mind space, your own body, is to take that treat. Or even, maybe it's an apple, maybe it's a great apple, or maybe it's a mediocre apple, but then every bite, like feel the crunch or feel the chocolate melt. And that can lead to a sense of self-compassion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A present moment is really where you can find some of the deepest moments with yourself, with compassion, with joy and understanding. Staying in the present moment is really kind of the deep container for it all, I feel.
Absolutely. Well, it's the only container.
Yeah, true.
Right? But then we sometimes try to act like, oh, the container is this other thing that I've constructed over here. And then things get sort of pulled apart. They're not at their center. What if someone comes to class, say, and says, I am just completely all up in it and I can't get out of it. And I'm so freaked out, I can barely stand myself, and they can't stop telling you about it. Where would you start with that person? How would you start a yoga class that would help that person sort of bring that container back to the present moment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, life can be like that. We're all, life is just feeling hectic and crazy, and coming into yoga class, you're dumping it forward, and I love it. Bring it. We're here to heal it. And with that, we really would take our time to center, take our time to really feel into our senses that we're feeling. And then we would find maybe yoga poses to help ground us, to help bring us back to the present moment. Feet on the ground, standing in mountain pose, just really kind of starting tuning into our body so we can get out of the mind, because that's what's taking over when we have all this stuff going on. Even though I know life is crazy and it's stressful, I get it. everyone has it. Everyone does. So it's learning to, how are we going to carry it? It's just, how can we carry it and how can we support ourselves carrying it? And so maybe we can just take it out of our mind for the moment, like the cloud passing by. I acknowledge that you have it, acknowledge that it's there, but we're going to work on some other things that we can work on, feeling into our hips to release emotions, or getting into our shoulders to help us with stress, so we can really feel the visceral sensation in our body. You can feel the stress in your body, and as we're breathing through class with different postures of movements and mantras, all the things, we can work on breathing and shifting that out. Where when you leave class, your problems are still going to be there. I can't really fix the problems, or what's going on, but you might feel like, you know what, my body feels great, my mind feels balanced, I can go at the stuff here feeling solid, because I gave myself care.
It's so beautiful the way you put it. I love that we're addressing how we carry it. And then you called on two of the tenets of healing yoga, the container. How are we carrying it? Because I think we've all had that experience of, like, after a stressful day, maybe you had one or two difficult conversations, or there was a near miss in traffic, something or other got rung up wrong, and blah, 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 right? All the things. And then you get into yoga class and you think, there's no way I'm going to be able to slow my mind down. There's no way I can put this down for the next hour. And then somehow you rise from your yoga mat and it all just seems slightly different, and just different enough, right? And the practice is a container, and the container is built by what you expressed so well. Notice it. I forget exactly how you put it now. I loved it when you said it.
Like, notice it, acknowledge it, and we just have to let it. It's still just got to let it go for now.
Awareness, not alteration.
Mm-hmm.
We're not shooting on it. We're not molding it. We're not batting it. We're not gooding it. We're just being with it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just being with it.
And then interoception, or the visceral sensation that you were talking about, like, oh, how does it feel when I do a full scapular rotation? Okay. So all of a sudden you're in the body, and those sensations have to get processed through parts of the brain that interrupt that sort of hypervigilance of this happened and that happened. He said, and then the thing came in, and it just sort of cuts right into it. And then all of a sudden, there you are.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. So if someone was on their own, they're listening to this and they're like, oh my gosh, that's so me. I just was spinning with my words right before I started listening to this. And I have 20 minutes now. And they've done some, say, yin yoga, they've done some hatha yoga. And so they kind of know the names of things. What breaths, what postures would you suggest to sort of get them started?
Yeah, I think one of my favorites, especially I'm up against the wall right now, would be legs up the wall. Always. I just feel it's just so, like, just shifts your energy, right? We're so upright. So you can really feel your energy. And if you don't connect with energy, you can feel something, your legs are going the wrong way. You can feel that. You can feel yourself feeling just so grounded and supported. And then just with breath awareness, you could match your inhale length to your exhale length and just find that balance. Or you can play around with just not changing, but just that awareness to the space in between the breath and what's happening there.
That space in between the breath, I think, can be, there have been two instructions in my life that I think will be with me until my very end. And one is I believe her name was, she was a Zen priest named Beatrice, I believe. And she said, you know, your breath is your friend. It's your best friend because it's always there, regardless of how you treat it. We ignore it. We all ignore it most of the day, and yet it is still there, right? You can war with it. You can try to repress it. It might not be happy with you, but it's still going to be there. Your breath, treat it as your best friend. And the other one was the very first time I really got what a kumbhak or the pause is. And I got, right? Got. Pausing after an inhale. And wow, like the world kind of stops, but it doesn't, it's more alive. And then pausing at the end, and it just feels like a little more quiet. At least that's my experience. But those pauses are so alive. Yeah.
Yeah, and just
What?
the littlest of moments, they're so alive.
Yeah. And it really can change the next moments.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Have you ever practiced metta meditation or loving kindness phrases?
I've heard of metta meditation. I've definitely practiced it in your yoga classes and have
Okay.
done metta meditation and like retreats and things, but not on my own. Have not necessarily have practiced it on my own, but it really is a powerful, powerful practice.
Well, and I think everybody has what sort of resonates with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, are there particular images that you call upon in your own life, in your own home yoga practice, that represent compassion and that balance between self-compassion and giving compassion?
Yeah, Ho'oponopono, I would say, is something I use often. The thank you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you. I use this on and off the mat. In my regular day job, I'm a nurse, and I have to deal with things that I have to strive to give compassion to, but that I also have compassion. I use Ho'oponopono before I pick up the phone. I'll do it before I send a message. I do it before I walk in a room. If I've had an uncomfortable encounter, I will use Ho'oponopono just because it helps me understand that everyone is going through something, even though you can't physically and visibly see it. So always just to say, you know, I do love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. Just kind of just putting in all those loving, compassionate things in those moments. So I use that on and off the mat all the time.
I love that. And that's a practice that I've carried with me for various parts of my life. And I love it because it's that sense of it's gratitude, but also a sense of no matter what has passed between us, I am not perfect. And so I appreciate your making space for my imperfections. And through love and gratitude, I make space for yours too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just an acknowledgement of how freaking human we all are.
Yes. Yes.
I wanted to circle back to the breath. You may have heard this. One of my clients, I have several clients who are therapists, and this person happens to work with kids. And she told me about the breath, and I don't know what it's called. I think it's a breath ratio or a Viloma technique, if you want to classify it in yogic breathing terms. It's the sniff, sniff, ah. She told me, and as soon as she said it, it was like, whoa, it mimics crying.
Oh.
And so it's that sense of like, just let it out, right?
No, I can feel it now after doing it.
Right?
I'm adding that in. It's like, I love that.
Sniff, sniff, ah. And crying is so, to me, it's an expression of compassion and release. And often the ability to just cry when we need to, because that's a whole other discussion, right? How tears are regarded in public. And sometimes it's just an expression of compassion. Sometimes it's an expression of how full you are, the person who's crying. But that mimicking of it sort of brings up that sense of expansiveness that comes with compassion.
You always feel good after a good cry, even if it was an emotional cry or a happy cry or an angry cry. You're always like, oh, I got that emotions out. I got it out. The waters, I always feel like the waters are cleansing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. On the topic of compassion, I'm wondering, one of the hardest parts for me, and I've worked a lot with the meta stuff, which brings this up, but I think it just comes up. I think it's just part of life, right? Like you said, sometimes you have an interaction that is uncomfortable. And thank you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. I guess that answers my question. I was going to say, how do you approach, how do you embrace compassion for the most difficult of people for you to feel compassionate about?
Yeah.
And that's different for everybody, right?
Yeah. Outside of the Ho'oponopono, I feel like that's just like an easy way. If you're like, I have no way of being compassionate for someone, that's what I got. Another way is I'll put myself in their shoes, like literally try to see, well, no wonder they're feeling this way. They got this, and this. Is it right that they're communicating with me this way? No, but I understand if I was going through that, I couldn't imagine how I would respond, or just the underlying knowing of you don't know. And it just brings up in me, if I feel some sort of way when someone is having conflict with me, that's something I need to resolve, not something they need to fix. I have compassion. Maybe there's something in me that they're maybe digging up that's kind of bothering me. Obviously, I need to have compassion with myself to acknowledge I'm feeling irritated or I'm not being compassionate, something about what they're doing. Instead of turning it on them, taking full responsibility or ownership of, because I can control me, I can't control them.
I love it. Well, and it's true. There are things that I have watched other people have said to them or whatever that really just seem to fall right off. That I think, oh my gosh, I'm not sure if I could have been that equanimous, that okay with that. And I know I've had experiences where stuff got hurled at me, and then afterwards someone would say, wow, how did you hold it together? And I'm like, right? And so you never know. And to me, what that proves is that whether or not the arrow lands has a lot to do with the soil it gets shot into. Yeah. And tending that soil is the work of yoga. And home yoga practice. I also, though, so there are two other places I sort of wanted to take this conversation, and we don't have to linger too much on this one, but I do think that in America today, but in the world in general, there seem to be so many factions. And I don't know about you, but I have people come in the door who are feeling some sort of way, as you say. great anxiety, and sometimes anger, and then sadness and fear and all of these emotions on whatever side, from whatever side they have taken about all of this divisiveness. In your opinion, is the regular practice of these techniques, can it be helpful in facing that sort of overarching social political stress that we don't have as much control over?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I feel like when you can, at least the one thing you know is like my bubble's good and the other things are just going to happen, that I just have to go with the flow of life and know that I can control me being good and I can control how I respond instead of react. And sometimes I might accidentally react, but it's what I'm going to do with that too. How will I tend to myself after I've reacted?
Yeah, yeah. And then how will you potentially attempt repair?
Mhm. Yeah.
And yeah, I like that. I like that. So if someone were to attend a yoga class with you, is there an overarching structure? Is there, you teach primarily, well, you teach yin with us.
Mhm.
Yes. Why is yin so close to your center, your heart?
I love yin because I feel like all yoga is accessible, don't get me wrong. But I feel like yin and restorative practices are maybe the most easiest to make accessible. But I also feel like the yin approach has a way different approach. You're sitting in a posture, you're working on finding stillness, which is can be extremely hard. You're already battling something. And even though you're seated, I feel like so much goes on within your container. And I truly have heard from people who've taken class, like, wow, I can physically feel the difference in just the simplicity of the class with intention, with posture, with breath, and really just being present. I feel like yin is just healing. It just is magic. I love it. I don't know. Come and find out.
Absolutely. Well, and I feel like I love that you highlighted its simplicity, because it
Mhm.
really is such a simple practice. Um, I like to refer to it as low and slow.
Mhm.
You get into some sort of a seated posture, you adjust forward, back, side, twist, or maybe you put your legs up the wall. And then you're there with it. In a way, it's the ultimate expression of compassion.
Mhm. Yeah, you're really learning how to, it kind of prepares you for it does prepare you for off the mat. So when you're having these slower moments, you can just really feed into yourself the love and compassion you need. So then when you're
Mm.
off the mat and you're like, oh, what a day or something, you can go, oh, I remember that class, which one I can do it at home on my own at any time. I don't even have to do a full class. I could do one section of it, and you can bring that home for you. And I think that's what's so beautiful is you're working on big things in a slow container that you can bring with you off the mat. Ideally is the whole purpose.
It's the whole purpose of yoga, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love your highlighting that you can take little bites of big things,
Mhm.
because whether it's a degree or raising a kid or a career or building a program or a move, or I mean 100 other things, these are all things that span like months and sometimes years, right? And how do they get done? One class at a time, right? You get your college degree, 1 hour long class at a time. You
Mhm.
raise a kid, one interaction at a time, right? And the same, it's one decision at a time. And you establish your inner refuge, one small practice at a time.
Mhm.
What would you say to someone who said, well, you know what, I only have 5 minutes, and so it's not worth it to like roll out my yoga mat?
I'm like, you have 5 minutes. It is so worth it. What else do you do in your day that you've been doing for 5 minutes? Don't tell me you have not been scrolling. I bet you can add up even more than 5 minutes, but don't tell me you can't find it. It's just what you do with your time. So it is so worth it because it's you showing up for yourself.
So carve it out. But then I think we've all been there where, so, okay, so they say, sure, I scrolled for 2.5 hours after dinner. But now I wake up and I'm like, well, poop. I wanted to go to bed at XYZ, and that's like half an hour away, and I still need to do this and this and this and this. Is there something that they could do for 5 minutes, say a yin posture, that could have the potential to bring them back into their container?
Absolutely. I would say for this one, we're going to need a prop. I think that would be best. And your prop could be a pillow, a blanket, or a block. And you're just going to lay your prop down. You don't even have to get your yoga mat out. You vacuumed your carpet, let's say. You're ahead of yourself here.
Or you don't care about the dog hair on it.
Yeah, you don't care. You're just going to lay your prop over, and you're going to just lay over your prop so that your heart is open, arms open, heart open. And so you can just receive and get to, I think, a very wonderful posture. And you can really feel the benefits just laying there for, if 5 minutes is too long, stay for 3 and tell me how you feel.
Yes. Well, and so I really sunk into this truth with Zazen meditation. I would spend half an hour, because the chunks are somewhere from 22 to 36 minutes at a time. Half an hour, and that whole half hour would be like a battle, right? Like, okay, I could get to 2 breaths and then whew, come back. Oh, whew, and then, and you know, by the time your half hour or so much or whatever it's going to be is almost over, you're like, oh my God, could this just please end? Right. And then you're like, okay, stop the chatter, come back. And it's this real inner battle. And then gong, and you get up, and you know what? It did its work.
It did. You had your battle. That's the thing. That was exactly what was supposed to happen.
So, and I think that's such an important thing, particularly for people who are starting with, they right now, all I can imagine carving out is this tiny little packet of time. It's possible you're not going to get like an ultimate release in that tiny little packet of time, but you show up next day and the next day and then the next day, and then when there's a gap, you still show up when you remember to. Those pile up and they have their effect.
Yeah,
And
you start wanting to go a little bit longer. You're like, oh, this is actually enjoyable, even if maybe I don't think it's working. Right.
yeah, and you start to notice other ripples out into your life. And so this idea that every practice has to be somehow monumental, right? Every release has to be the ultimate release. I don't know about you, but it can get in my way sometimes. And the truth is that it's the showing up to the breath, to the sensory practice, to the mind space, regardless of what nutty stuff is going on in there.
Mhm.
It's the showing up. And then, sure, there are words happening, but you just keep, okay, pulling back. What's the raw experience? What's the raw experience? Well, thank you. This has been a wonderful raw experience.
Yes.
And I always enjoy talking to you about yoga practice and other things. Are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave people with?
Yeah, I'd just love for you all to come check out Yin Yoga on Thursdays. It is at, let me think, I have to do my time translation because I'm in Minnesota. So classes at
Minnesota time.
Minnesota time's at 9 o'clock. So it's at 8 o'clock
8
p.m.
o'clock
on
Mountain.
Thursdays.
And that's 8 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Pacific, and then 10 p.m. Eastern.
Yes. Yes.
And so I think it's an amazing wind down practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we
for that.
practice seasonally and we shift our practice with the season. We invite in acupressure massage as we learn about the meridians within our body and how that affects our overall well-being as well. So it really is taking your healing into your hands, or taking your healing back into your hands.
I can't think of a better place to leave it. Thank you so much. This has been lovely as always, and I look forward to talking to you again soon, Gina.
Yes, thank you so much.
Happy Yoga Day.
Yes, happy Yoga Day. Yeah.